Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this third and final episode of our three-part series, The Reputation Management Playbook, Turning Every Customer Interaction into Your Competitive Advantage, presented by B2B Marketing Zone and sponsored by Reputation. I'm Tom, the webinar coordinator for B2B Marketing Zone, and I'm excited to bring you this brand new installment with well-earned insight on dominating your local market with these 4 reputation management strategies. I'm really looking forward today to talking with Adam Dorfman, Aaron O'Brien, and Lindsay Harrison in what I'm sure will be a fascinating and amusing conversation. Also, we will be recording this webinar in case you have to leave early. We're going to be sending the link to the series page in the chat box right now. Up next, before we go any further, let's get some technical things out of the way. Please feel free to ask questions during today's session. You can do so by submitting them into the questions panel on the right side of your screen. Don't forget to stick around until the end for a Q&A session to get even more fresh insights from Adam, Aaron, and Lindsay. My wonderful colleague, Michelle, will also be fielding your questions today. She'll be happy to answer anything you might have, so you can pull up the questions panel and just say hello to let her know that you're listening. Lastly, if you have any audio issues during today's presentation, you may wish to choose to dial in by phone. You can do so by selecting the More button in the upper right portion of your screen and then selecting the Switch to Phone option. We also have the dial-in information up on the screen now, and Michelle can relay it to you if you need it. So go ahead and ask her in the questions panel if you would need it. Now, before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to run a quick poll with everyone here, just so we can kind of gauge the audience. Go ahead and get your answers in by clicking right on the screen here. Which of the below are you most concerned with at your company? Is it standing out in online searches, understanding your customers and prospects, improving customer retention, operationalizing feedback, or improving GMB accuracy across all locations? I want to leave this up for around 30 seconds or so. I just want to get most of a majority of the respondents here that are online with us today so we can get a good sample for this first poll question. Just a couple more seconds. Some really interesting results that are coming in. I can't wait for our esteemed speakers to dissect these with me here, but I'm going to go ahead and close it and share the results here. Looks like by far and away the top answer here was standing out in online searches, and I think with 71%, I think that's really, why we all came here today to learn more. And then 13% for understanding your customers and prospects was the second answer. Very cool. All right. So today I'm talking with Adam Dorfman, Aaron O'Brien, and Lindsay Harrison. All 3 speakers here have a wealth of experience with reputation management from all different perspectives. Adam is a technology and digital marketing professional with more than 20 years of experience. His expertise spans all aspects of product development, as well as scaling product and engineering teams. He has been in the SEO and local SEO space since 1999. In 2006, Adam co-founded Sim Partners and helped create a business that made it possible for companies to automate the process of attracting and growing customer relationships across multiple locations. Sim Partners was acquired by Reputation in 2018, and now Adam is currently Director of Product at Reputation, where he and his teams are integrating location-based marketing and reputation management in customer experience. Aaron O'Brien has been the General Manager of Red Wolf Lakeside Lodge for over 23 years. She has recently taken on a new role as area manager, providing leadership and overseeing 3 resorts in Tahoe Vista. Her consistent oversight ensures the strategic growth and profitability of the management company and the brand services standards and excellence across the resorts. In addition, Aaron demonstrates her dedication to her direct reports and the physical and financial health of the associations she serves. Last but certainly not least, for nearly 10 years, Lindsay Harrison has been a leader in the digital marketing space. Beginning her career in the nonprofit sector, focusing on advocacy, fundraising, and outreach, gave Lindsay the tools to enter hospitality with a fresh, empathetic perspective. Her success in the industry is built on her belief that fostering customer touchpoints builds authentic relationships, increases engagement, and inspires loyalty. Management, social media, email marketing, and comprehensive data analysis. Lindsay optimizes the customer experience from start to finish and is known to do it with a smile. Unfortunately, we can't see that smile today because she is having difficulty with her webcam, but that's a live event technology for you. Without further ado, though, I would like to hand it over to Adam. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, first off, thank you everybody for joining us today. We have a lot of fantastic topics to cover, a lot of great tips, both strategic as well as in the weeds tactics that we're going to be discussing as well too. Both or all three of us love questions from the audience. So as they come in, as Tom said, please by all means send them to us. We hope to get to as many of them as possible at the end of this presentation. So what are we learning about today? Well, first we're going to speak about how online search behavior is evolving, and then we're going to get into the meat of the presentation, which is 4 specific strategies you can use to improve your local visibility for your businesses today, and then how companies have seen success by prioritizing their online reputation. So really trying to connect the dots and allow you to not just improve visibly within search results, which is certainly something that all of us want to be able to do, but also how can we improve operationally? We're going to be speaking about that also. Okay, before we get started, some quick trends that a couple stats that I just wanted to speak to. That's going to somewhat set the stage for what we're going to be talking about. In the last 2 years, near me searches have grown by 200%. This stat has been around for a while and it keeps growing year over year over year. Like this number doesn't really change that much. And what that means is that not only are people becoming more used to using Google to find things locally, but Google has become so incredibly confident in what they consider local versus what they don't consider local that they are returning way more results that are local in nature that they never would have previously. And an example of that could be products, for instance. So right now, Google is starting to receive inventory of local product inventory. And so 10 years ago, if you had done a search for PlayStation, you would have not received a list of stores along in a map pack results, for instance, that have PlayStations in stock, assuming that there are PlayStations in stock, which as far as PS5s go, there's never PlayStations in stock still. My 11-year-old is quick to point that out all the time. But again, that's really just shows how much Google is localizing everything, how confident they are in those results, and why they're so important for all businesses that have any sort of local presence as well too. Okay, second thing is that local search leads to revenue. So 79% take relevant action on their phone prior to making a purchase. This is incredibly important. We're going to talk through how customer journeys have changed recently. And really what this means and what we like to talk about is that Google is often your new digital front door. When people are looking for a business now, they are not going to your website directly. At the very least, they are going to do a search for your business name, assuming that it's a recovery or a branded search on Google, and then get whatever information that they see there. And if they're not getting everything they need, then they may end up on your website. But it's really important that if you are thinking about what it is that you want to show your customers, how you can convert them as well as possible, how to make the customer journey for them as easy as possible, it's really important to think about getting that information to them as quickly as possible. Now you take that and you combine it with the fact that the overwhelming majority of searches are done on mobile devices, and you can see why that so many people end up taking an action on their phone prior to making a purchase. Could be calling the store, could be getting driving directions, could be making a reservation. There's a lot of different things you can do on your phone now before you even get to the store itself. And with that, I think we have a second poll.
Sure. I am going to launch this poll question right now. All right, this poll question is up on the screen right now. Feel free to get your answers in just by clicking directly on the screen. Which roles best describe what you do for your organization? Some of the options we have here: marketing, digital marketing or social media, brand or communications, on the leadership team in marketing, customer experience or operations, or some other function. So go ahead, I'm going to leave that up for about 30 seconds or so, just like the last poll. I want to get a majority of the answers in again, and then we're going to close it pretty soon and share the results. It's kind of an even distribution coming in so far, but I'm interested in dissecting this in a few seconds here. That looks like most of everyone, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. We'll share the results here, and yeah, pretty even distribution. I think the most is an other, but then 26% in digital marketing or social media, which kind of makes sense for the topic of the webinar today. But go ahead, Adam. Feel free to talk about these.
Awesome. So actually, before we get to that, I find the results of this poll incredibly encouraging, because one thing that's been that we're seeing at Reputation, at least, is the need for a lot of these strategies that we're going to be speaking about to not just roll into marketing, which has historically been the case, but to be cross-functional across multiple divisions. And I know that Lindsay and Aaron and others have stories related to that they may be able to share also. But certainly it's not just the marketing team's person to ensure that you are being successful digitally as it relates to your customer experience and how people are viewing you through there. Okay, so what are the 4 strategies? We're at the great part of the presentation here. So what are the 4 things we're going to be speaking about? So we're going to talk about why it's important that your business listings are accurate and that you are as visible as possible within Google search results. We're going to talk about how reviews play into that and how you can improve your review strategies. We're going to speak about social media, specifically monitoring and listening at scale across social media locations, as well as different places where that feedback might be coming in. And then also speaking about surveying, like direct surveying customers as well too. Because if you're doing all 4 of these things very well, that's really setting you up for success here. So we're gonna dive right in. So the first one, ensuring accurate business listings. Okay, I'm gonna speak not specifically about business listings, because I think everybody at this point understands why business listings, what business listings are, why accuracy is something that you want to be thinking about when it comes to business listings. Like, if people have the wrong phone number where they're trying to look you up, that's not a good thing, right? You want them to be able to call you. I want to talk more about business listings and how it's affecting Google, and how Google has changed the customer journey, and why having accurate data, and more specifically, why having a complete and robust set of data is so important. And what we're seeing with a lot of our clients these days is the ability for people to have a complete customer experience within a set of Google results. Within a set of Google within a Google experience, without ever leaving Google itself. So this could be something where people do a near me search. They get to organic and paid results. So they'll do a search for a restaurant near me, or in this case, St. Peter's, Missouri dentist. They get a set of results. They find the information that they need. They say, oh, this is the dentist that I want. I'm going to click on driving directions, or I'm going to call and make a reservation, or I'm going to actually do an appointment online. You can see that we can make an appointment directly from within the knowledge panel. I'm going to convert in that sense. I'm actually going to get to the dentist itself. And then I'm going to circle back and leave a review about that dentist. Now, what that means is that this customer or this patient has had a complete customer journey on Google, because all of the information that they needed was on Google. They didn't actually have to click to your website. Now, I'm not saying that websites aren't incredibly important. They still are, not just from a customer experience standpoint, but Google still factors very heavily in terms of their ranking algorithms, both for local as well as local organic. So it's really important that you have a good website, but the truth of the matter is that complete customer experiences are happening regularly without people ever getting to your website whatsoever. So that's why having accurate business listing information is incredibly important. That's why having complete and robust business listing information is important. Now, Lindsay, I think you had an interesting take on this as well too, and how this is affecting your businesses as well. Is that something you could share with us?
Sure, yes. We are our thought process behind our Google business listings is put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. Is this the information that you are wanting to put out there? Is this what you are looking for? If you were the consumer, can you find your location? Is your phone number available? Are your hours impacted? Are they updated? Do you have erroneous reviews? Have you corrected that? Are your photos up to date? These are the things that we are regularly looking for, and we challenge you to do the same with your Google listings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And again, like I said, we're seeing the exact same thing. Thanks for sharing that, Lindsay. Okay, let's move on to number 2, which is improving local SEO by monitoring and responding to reviews. Now, I love this idea because when you think of SEO in general, as Tom nicely dated me, I've been doing this since the late 90s, and traditionally SEO was all about how do we improve keyword density and how do we build links and all of this kind of stuff, like just almost tactical, like techie, almost trying to in many ways push against Google's algorithms and gain those algorithms in order to appear as well as possible. The great thing is that Google's algorithms have become much more sophisticated, and they're actually listening to not just what the businesses say about themselves, but what other people are saying about them. And that's really where these monitoring and responding to reviews come into play. And one thing that we see repeatedly on multiple case studies, we do a lot of white papers, we release a lot of white papers, we have a lot of case studies, you can see them on our website, that show direct correlation between how many reviews you're receiving, the frequency of reviews, the quantity of reviews, the recency of reviews, the ratings that you're receiving, along with actual in-store sales as well too. So we work with our clients to come up with actual correlation studies that show, hey, if you are receiving more reviews, are you seeing more revenue? And the fact of the matter is that it is directly tied to revenue. Bad reviews or simply not reviews will prevent you from winning new business. So to that end, it's incredibly important that you're doing things to try and encourage reviews. Now, the way that we think about reviews is a 3-part solution. First, it's monitoring, responding, and analyzing reviews. Reviews can help brands improve review volume and ratings by monitoring, responding to, and requesting reviews. Those are the 3 pillars that you want to think about. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you are collecting all of the reviews that are coming in across as many places as possible. So if people are speaking about you, you want to receive that. Second thing that you want to be doing is, as those reviews come in, you absolutely have to be responding to them. By responding to them, not only is it sending positive signals to Google potentially that you are an active business, but more importantly, it's sending positive signals to your customers that you actually care about what they have to say. We see a direct correlation between businesses that respond to reviews and star ratings. And a lot of times that is often the case is because when businesses take the time to respond to reviews and to try to make bad situations right, you can see ratings change. Customers are willing to make changes. So that's why that's really important. And then also requesting reviews. The story that I always like to use is that 20 years ago, if a plumber had come over and had fixed a drippy faucet in my kitchen sink, and he had done a competent job, he was tidy, he was in and out in like 30 or 45 minutes, I probably would not be calling my friends and family saying, you would not believe the completely expected competent service that I just had from the plumber that just came by. If that same plumber came by to fix a drippy faucet and flooded my entire kitchen, I absolutely would be speaking to everybody that would be willing to listen to me and complaining about what a bad experience I had with the plumber that came by. Now, what that means is that we have a silent majority of positive customers that typically, if you're not requesting feedback from them, are just going to remain quiet because they had a very good customer experience. But by requesting those, you bring those to the surface, and that's how you can really improve your ratings. And that's why it's so important in order for you as a business to show a complete understanding of, or a complete representation of what your business actually is capable of doing. That's why it's so important that you are requesting reviews. Now, finally, there's additional things, like I talked about those first 3 and kind of like crawl, walk, run. But if you want to take it to the next level, then you can display your reviews from Google or other channels on your company website, and then identify custom common themes across your customer reviews to improve operationally. Okay, Erin, I'm really excited to hear from you and hear about, as a general manager, how you think about reviews. Does what I'm talking about here align with how you think about reviews as they come in and how you tackle them? And if not, what other things are you thinking about when it comes to managing your reviews?
Well, thank you. Low ratings and low reviews aren't always great, but they can be. So when you do have those low ratings, we reach out to all of our guests. We request reviews from all of them, which is great. But we also need to address the elephant in the room, so to speak. If you're requesting reviews, then you really need to respond to them. And we do a really wonderful job through Reputation with this. In our organization, we have a program called CSIP, which is our Continuous Service Improvement Program, which his purpose is to provide all of our general managers with resources on how to fully utilize the Reputation.com platform in conjunction with our CSIP program to ensure that our guests are meeting their our resorts, are meeting their guest satisfaction goals. So what we do is we use all of the post-survey dashboard to provide live information along with historical trending, survey completion statistics, and verbatim comments. We then take the 3 to 5 largest opportunities and discuss the appropriate action to improve upon them. This process, we repeat it each month with all of our department heads, then that information is disseminated to the rest of the team. We really consider our low scores the most valuable out of all of them because, as you know, you won't always hear about the wonderful stays, as you said, Adam, but we do hear about the negative ones, and we've discovered many of our best practices with this information.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Erin. I love that this is part of a monthly process for you, where you are looking at all of the reviews that have come in and trying to identify what is it that we can do to improve operationally. And you're actually making core business changes as well too. That's music to my ears. That's fantastic. And that's exactly what we see with our clients that are having the most success utilizing a review program. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, and with that, let's speak a little bit about social media. Now, social media has been around for a long time, of course, but it continues to grow. The amount of places that you can monitor information within social media, and more importantly, the volume can be overwhelming sometimes. So how do you start listening at scale? There is endless places where people can leave reviews. There's it feels like a just overwhelming flood of information, even for a small business owner, even for somebody that might have one business. They could still be, depending on the business that they're in, seeing hundreds of reviews or Facebook posts or Twitter mentions or TikToks or Instagrams or whatever coming at them, and mentions on Twitter as well too, all coming at them on a weekly basis. And how do you manage all of that in one place? How do you find ways to make sense of that and to actually do what Erin just described, which is make changes operationally so that negative reviews or stop coming or like decrease and positive experiences increase? And to that end, there are a lot of tools out there that can help you. These are screenshots of our platform at Reputation, but there are other tools as well too. Whatever tool that you're using though, there's a few things that you're really gonna want to make sure that it has. First and foremost, you're gonna wanna make sure that they can pull in as much content from as many places as possible. And that could be things like social media, reviews, surveys, messaging. There's a lot of places where this information could potentially come from. You're going to want to make sure that it's strong and natural language processing so that you can find out what people are speaking about, and not just what they're speaking about, but whether that sentiment is positive or negative. And it also needs to be sophisticated enough to understand that within a single review, there can be both positive parts of that review as well as the negative parts of that review, and being able to pick those out as well too. Now, Lindsay, I think you have some something interesting to share as it relates to how you are managing this, because you're somebody that's looking at potentially, I believe, hundreds of locations, and I'm curious to see how these tools are making your job easier, what the lowest hanging fruit has been for you as you've come on board, and how else you're thinking about utilizing this as well too.
Sure. So not hundreds of locations, thank goodness, but I do have my hands full on the location aspect. Our GMs love the word cloud that is presented to them through this sentiment report. It's nice to present to them a tool that encapsulates that sentiment and that trend, and it's aggregated instantly for them. It's been really nice for our team to see that.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. I find the sentiment side of the tool to be in many ways the most helpful, and again the way to quickly identify, oh, people are having long wait times at check-in, or the product itself wasn't what they expected, and then allowing those that are trying to improve operations to quickly like zone in on what locations might be having trouble, as well as what exactly that can be done to do that. And on the same time, if you're collecting positive information too and you're requesting reviews, you can look at alternate locations and say, oh, well, what are they doing well that maybe we could bring into other locations also. So there's a lot that can be done with this. Okay, and that brings us to our final tip, which is surveying your customers for overall sentiment. So for this one, I was speaking about this before, which is low feedback volume is not something that's helpful. And whether that feedback is through reviews or whether that feedback is through surveying your customers directly, it's really important to be able to generate insights and visibility. And the only way to do that is to get a lot of feedback. So if you are not implementing a survey program that employs automation and SMS delivery, you are potentially missing out on receiving a lot of that customer feedback that can really help you improve operationally, improve your visibility within Google search results, because you are going to have better feedback and buzz about you, and that'll of course end up in more revenue. Now, Lindsay has some great stories to share here, and Lindsay, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to you to talk through the next few slides and how you think about surveying from Grand Pacific's standpoint.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, the vacation well.
Mm-hmm.
Our team was getting a lot of questions about COVID precautions, so we implemented the vacation well program on our website. We had responses to facts that were ready to go, but beyond what was listed there, we had additional information here. We used these on Google and linked them back to our microsites. When responding to social media and review responses, we could direct them back here. All of our information here, it was critical that this was up to date, and we were able to communicate not only if we were open and closed, but demonstrated our understanding of the crisis and could speak to how our hospitality service and amenities were then impacted. It was helpful here to convey the steps that were taken for our guest safety on each of the properties that we managed. We were able to communicate to potential guests that there were not only that they were aware of the current situation, but we were prioritizing their safety first and foremost. And this was helpful due to the fluidity of the COVID crisis that we saw through 2020 and again into 2021. But we were able to then direct our guests to the appropriate sources to get regional information on the different mandates and travel restrictions that then might apply to them, as well as cancellation policies, amenity changes, and cleaning procedures. This was very, very valuable. And as we all know, transparency is key. when giving information out, especially in a time like this, it was critical that we were transparent with our guests. And this was a really, really great way to sort of see where the behavior was going and get in front of potential questions and feedback that were coming our way. Next slide. And our online reputation results were impacted. Like Erin alluded to earlier, negative feedback isn't a bad thing. We have had opportunities given to us that we have been able to turn that negative experience a guest may have into that guest being an evangelist for our brand. Our reviews are very, very valuable, and we are given the suggestions that can improve our guest experience. And by having that direct pulse on this feedback, we have had the opportunity to improve our guest experience and keeping track of not only the positive, but the negative points given to us. We have a clear picture of what our consumers want and desire when they stay with us. And that's the same for you. You can have that picture and you can implement the changes your guests expect, thus leading your business into better online reviews. By having an established escalation procedure in place for predicaments like we've seen in the last 18 to 20 months, but also things that are very unknown to us. By having those established procedures in place for your reviews and your responses and having a standard place to tie back to, you are getting in front of it. Most of the hurdles that you will see in the day-to-day when dealing with that situation. I would advise checking your reviews early, day-to-day, responding publicly to your negative and your neutral reviews immediately. It is crucial to have a human voice and acknowledge your customers' feelings in these moments. Work toward getting that conversation offline. Be very specific in your responses with a name, phone number, or email of a person that can be contacted. Your customer is frustrated at this point, and it is helpful to you to make this escalated procedure easy for them. Human voice is imperative, especially while in crisis mode. Brands have had to show their human side to provide consumers with that human element in every different interaction with that brand, including reviews and social listening. So while embracing all of those digital elements, be focused on that human experience. Use your empathy and your compassion and builds that connection that provides those human elements. Next slide.
Lindsay, real quick before we go to the next slide, I just want to acknowledge that in the last 3 minutes, you shared about 15 amazing takeaways and like just really did such a great job of talking about how speak directly to the customers, give very specific ways that they can talk to you, take the conversation off live, be human to them, like humanize them, try and put yourself in their shoes, empathize. All of those things are just so incredibly important. And we have so many clients, you being a fantastic example of that truly embrace that mindset, and it shows completely in how they are looking from a reputation standpoint as well too. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Of course.
Okay, and with that, let's go to the next slide.
All right, so your feedback hub. you are already collecting more feedback than you probably realize, because generally speaking, it's siloed throughout your organization. But by having a feedback hub, it brings all of those sources back together, and then you are able to analyze that for sentiment around the key categories of experience. For us, we've been able to leverage the information presented to us and pinpoint the areas that we might need to improve upon. Again, like just very much piggybacking on what Erin said, there's so much more to just knowing what you're doing wrong. It's really paying attention to what you're doing right. That gets you through this information and really identifying what you're doing well and what you think can improve upon. Having that pulse and awareness is huge on what you can enhance in the future. Next slide.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we are almost at the end of the presentation. I'm going to end this with a few stats that you can see right here. Just a reminder, if you have questions, please continue sending them in. I believe we've received a lot already. I'm excited to get through as many of those as possible, but keep sending them in. We'll try and get to them if possible. So yeah, there are risks to not managing your online customer experience, to not being visible within search results, to not having a review program in place, monitoring social media, surveying, empathizing with your customers. All of these things are incredibly important because 22% of prospects look elsewhere after reading one negative review, right? So that's a risk. That's something to consider. And you're going to receive negative reviews, but that just speaks to, if you're requesting reviews, that's going to make it less likely that a prospect is going to come across a negative review, and specifically is going to come across a negative review at the very top of your review queue, or a very recent negative review. The second risk is, it is, as any business owner can tell you, it is much easier to retain customers as opposed to getting new customers. And you can see here that a 2% increase in customer retention has the same business impact of decreasing costs by 10%. So if you are listening to your customers, if you are acting on the feedback that they are sending you, they are more likely to stay there, which can be incredibly valuable to you just from a pure profit standpoint. And then finally, let's end on one positive one. We're right in the center, which is 71% of customers that receive positive social customer care are likely to recommend your brand. So if you can be that empathetic person that Lindsay was just describing and turn a bad customer experience into a good one, they are going to remember that, and they're going to mention that should somebody ask them for some sort of recommendation for a business or a service that maybe you provide. Okay, there are lots of ways to contact us. From a reputation standpoint, you can always get in touch with us at these links. You can go to reputation.com/contact and get to us there. We also have a great resource guide. Here's an example of a recent study that we did, the case for integrated online reputation management. That one, a lot of effort was put into that. There's some great takeaways there. But all of us love hearing directly from you. So if you want to reach out to us directly, I can be reached at Twitter at @Fixed. Lindsay and Erin both have their emails here. If you can't jot them down super quick right now, because I'm about to leave the presentation mode, don't worry about it. This presentation will be available after this will be posted, so you can review it later and grab these email addresses. But we would love to hear from you directly if we don't get to your question, or if you have any follow-up questions as well too. And with that, I'm going to try stop sharing my screen. Just a moment. All right. And I believe that I stopped sharing the presentation, and it looks like Erin is the only one with a working webcam right now. Tom, while I try and get my webcam working, are there any questions that you can start sending our way that we can answer to our audience members?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into questions, I want to remind everyone that now is that time to get straight from the source insight from Adam, Aaron, and Lindsay, just like Adam said. And like I mentioned in the beginning, great questions contribute to a great webinar. So we're going to try to cover as many as we can. And also, like Adam said, we understand if you need to run, the recording and the slides will be emailed in the next 48 hours. The first question I want to get to here with our time remaining is from Kyle. And Kyle is wondering, kind of a specific question if you can get to it, but he's wondering, how do you remove erroneous reviews? And if I can sort of extrapolate a little bit more, can and should you is another question I think we should probably discuss. So maybe Adam, if you could address that question.
Yeah, I'll start with that, and then I'm gonna pass this off to Erin. I'm curious to see what she thinks about this. Because Erin said, and I believe this, that some of the best reviews that you receive and the ones that you want to embrace more than any are the negative ones. So I would 100% recommend taking those to heart. Even a bad customer experience, if they're taking the time to leave a review, is because they wanted a different outcome. And there's often great nuggets there in terms of how to improve your customer experience moving forward. However, sometimes reviews come in that either have PHI information or PII information in there that go against Google's guidelines, or maybe they're defamatory and so on. There are pages, and we can link to this after the presentation. If you do a search for removing a Google review, for instance, or even on Yelp or other sites as well too, it can be difficult to have them taken down, but it's very clear on what constitutes a review being taken down. Now, the fact of the matter is that it is unlikely to come down unless there is, again, defamatory or personal information on there, or doxing, or whatever the case may be. However, if you're requesting reviews, that negative review is not going to stay up very long. It's just going to get pushed further down the recent reviews. And so even if you do have negative reviews, it's not going to be the first impression that your customers are seeing when they search for your business. Erin, do you have anything to add to that? You're on mute. Hey, Erin, you're on mute. I don't know if you can.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. In our organization, we don't take down any reviews, even if they are erroneous. Unless, of course, there's, defamation or things like that on there. And just like you said, we solicit so many reviews that the few reviews that we have that, may be a little fabricated, they don't stay up very long. So it's important to address them. We don't take down reviews in our organization. We make sure that they're obviously addressed online. Normally our general managers will do a follow-up as well, but keep pushing to get those positive reviews. And, we'll have people say, I saw a review once about this, but I really didn't see it again. So, we take care of it and move on.
Great, thanks. Okay, so Tom, next question.
For sure. Just a little follow-up question to that question, actually. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. Is you're saying that it's most important to respond to that review and make sure that response is public?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, when we have it on our site, we do put it right on there as well. I normally personally would respond to those reviews myself.
Okay, fantastic, excellent. If there's any follow-up questions to that as well, feel free to drop them in the chat here. I'd love to move on to a question now from Amy. This is really interesting. She's wondering, most of our customers are elderly and don't know how to use Google reviews. We put their comments on our website, but is there maybe an easier option? So this is kind of an interesting, if your demographic, if your audience or your customer base sort of isn't web savvy, how can you sort of navigate that?
I have some ideas, but I want to see if Lindsay, is that something that you've encountered before? And if so,
That's not something that I have personally encountered before, but that is, like you, something that I have some ideas about. But I would say find your consumer where they're at and elicit those reviews where they are. Maybe they have the capacity to write that down, and then it's able to be inputted online after the fact. It might be able to be photographed and shared, but those are definitely reviews that you want to capture, and then you want to have some creative problem solving and dealing maybe with that demographic that has those technology challenges. Adam, what are your thoughts?
I love that. Meet your customers where they're at. We work with a lot of senior living facilities at Reputation, and so this is something that does come up semi-regularly. And one thing that a lot of those clients focus on is reviews, not just from the resident of the senior living facility, but all of the influencers of that decision as well too. So a lot of times they're asking for reviews from their kids is the most common person also. So that might be something to consider. I'd also recommend experimenting with how you're requesting reviews. Is email the best way to get them to respond? Is it text messages? My parents are getting up there. They're certainly part of AARP at this point and everything, and they are both avid texters, like many people are. So I think it's less about perhaps seniors not being able to leave a review on Google, but like Lindsay just said, meeting them where they're at and making sure that you're requesting the review in the place that they're most likely to utilize as well.
That's a fantastic answer, and actually leads very well into this next question that I want to get to that's in the same vein from Jaina. Jaina's wondering, what if people don't respond when you ask them for reviews? And are there certain easy surveys that you would recommend using, maybe easy survey questions? Do you just do Google reviews? And if so, what's the easiest way to use it?
Aaron, I'm going to pass this to you. How do you encourage or try and, or what do you do if the reviews aren't, or the surveys aren't coming in the way that you'd like them to?
Well, we're pretty proactive in our company, where we're constantly, bringing up the review throughout the stay. When we have an activity at the resort, we'll say, how is everything going? Oh, great. Well, just to let you know, you're going to be getting a review in your email 3 to 6 days after you check out. If we don't see a lot of reviews coming in, we have another process where we go back and go start a phone parade with them to try to get them to send those reviews in. But, we just constantly talk about it. So that way the guest knows that it's going to be coming. And, when you give them their welcome check-in cookies, by the way, you're going to be getting a review. So any positive opportunity you have to bring up that review, you should definitely do so. That's how we get so many.
Lindsay, do you have anything to add to this one? I'm curious to hear how you think about this.
Oh, no, I think she answered that perfectly. I don't have much to add in addition to that.
No worries. I think the one thing I would add is one tactic that we often, and perhaps not specific to reviews, this is more on the survey side, but it could apply to reviews too, which is don't think of a review as being a one-to-one relationship with the customer. So this doesn't answer the question of what do you do if a customer doesn't want to leave a review. This is more about after a customer stays, if you're a hotel or if you are a oil change company or something like that, you should be asking for reviews after every customer experience, even if they've already left you a review, because there's nothing preventing them from leaving additional reviews or at the very least additional survey responses so that you can see how their latest customer experience was as well too. So I think that would be good to what you said.
Excellent. These are all fantastic answers, fantastic discussion here. I want to segue into a question. This is kind of more geared towards Lindsay and Aaron, sort of on your day-to-day operations here. How have you made it a priority or on your team and across your organization to prioritize customer feedback? And maybe you could give some tips as to how to do these reports, maybe if you have to do them on a regular cadence, or how to most effectively utilize that sort of system.
Sure, I can start and then I can pass it off to Erin. That looks different for both of us. In my capacity, it's best that I have that day-to-day pulse first thing in the morning on what consumers are thinking and feeling about our brands on the day-to-day side of things. And then if an escalation is necessary, I take it up my chain of command or direct that to the general manager there on property for each different resort. But for me, it's best to really get that information in front of myself day to day, and then be able to have that finger on the pulse and be able to speak to that, as the start of my day every single day. Erin, I'll turn it over to you to add to that.
I agree with you as well. When we get in the morning, one of the first things we do is open up our email. We get our reputation email every day, the sentiment report. It gives me just a quick overview of where we're at. And then we log into reputation and just, see what's going on. What are people saying? Where do we need to focus? I do that every day as well as my assistant, and we have our weekly team meetings where we address everything in there with department heads and then move on from there. But yeah, I don't wait till the end of the month to check to see how we're doing. It's got to be a living, thriving daily part of your life where, and once you get there, you don't have to do any crisis management to recoup scores or reviews.
Fantastic answers from both of you. I want to do a question now. I think this is more geared towards Adam. Sort of what's the best way to monitor social media when you have a smaller team or just one person managing several accounts? I don't know if Erin and Lindsay would actually be able to speak to this as well. I'm not sure how big their teams are, but I think this is a common sentiment across companies with maybe smaller teams, smaller companies that still need to have that online presence. So Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard. It's having run small companies myself. It's just for a single business can be very overwhelming. The amount of feedback that can come in. I do go back to what I was talking about earlier when we were speaking about listening at scale and trying to find a tool, whether it's reputation or something else, that can connect to all of your, not just social media accounts, not just review sites, but also be able to listen too. So if somebody mentions you on Twitter or mentions you on Facebook, being able to pull, or on Reddit or Instagram or what have you, being able to pull in all of that information into a central place. And again, not trying to read everything that comes in, but to find out what are the themes that are coming across. Because if you can address those themes, you can start understanding how your business is truly functioning in the eyes of your customers, at least the ones that are being vocal online.
And Adam, I'll speak to that as well. I mean, my resort here is fairly small. It's 27 units, but we have several within our organization. For us we report on a stoplight method. So it's, red, yellow, green. So for the team, when they come in the morning, it's right there at where we have our daily stand up, and they can see each day how our scores are, reviews, comments, and how we're trending. So it's very easy for them to grasp. They see the colors, and they want to be in the green. So that's something that we use as a tool in our company to make sure to really kind of push the team to, get out of the yellow, go into the green. So that's how we reach out to our team. Smaller resorts, you may not have a daily meeting when you only have 9 associates. So it's a great method that they can see it when they walk right in and see how we're doing.
Love the idea of, I think what I'm hearing from you is you have triaging in place too. Like every morning when you're this is what we need to focus on right now. And there is all these other things we could focus on, but we have limited bandwidth. So let's get these red ones out the door first and get to the rest when we're able to. And I think that really speaks to the heart of what Tom was asking, which is, I have limited bandwidth. How do I do that? And it seems like you figured that out. So that's kudos to you. That's fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you both for those answers. If there are any follow-ups to that as well, I know this is a common question that we get all the time. Feel free to drop it in the chat. I want to get to a couple more questions with the time that we have remaining here. This is an interesting one from Alexandra. Would you have to get approval from a customer to display their Google review on your website? And if I can extrapolate a little bit, extend that question, is this something that you should do? Do you recommend doing this?
I'm going to answer that because I know the answer, and I can answer that very succinctly. Google reviews are considered public, so you do not need to get permission from the customer in order to display that on your website. Nor do you need to get permission from Google to display those on your website. However, Google, whether it's Google or Yelp or TripAdvisor or WebMD or wherever you're sourcing these reviews from that you want to show on your website, the one thing that all of these different review sources are insistent upon is that they're attributed and linked back to properly. So if you're going to show a Google review on your website, it's really important that you link back to that review into your business profile on Google itself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay, great. For sure. I hope, Alexander, that clarifies for you. Again, if you have follow-ups and we don't get it to you or we don't get to your question today, Aaron and Adam and Lindsay have given their contact information in the slide deck in the recording, which will be sent out, and you can feel free to contact them with further questions. Lastly, I want to get to one final question here, and this one is directed at Aaron, but I believe that Lindsay and Adam, you would also be able to speak to this. But when developing your customer surveys, what data or feedback are you looking for to help make operational changes at your company? And again, Lindsay, you can also speak to this as well if you can.
I think this might be better for Lindsay since she really works at the developing of it. So.
Sure. Our focus is on those pulse points, right? We want to have the greatest amount of aggregated sentiment. And what does that look like for the masses? And so we want questions that can really identify with the majority of our users, right? So we don't want very specific questions going out there, but we also want it to be at each of the touch points that our consumers are experiencing. And we want to be able to get that information back to us in a way that we're able to do something about it. We don't want to just get questions that we can't solve for. And so in terms of coming up with what we're speaking to on our surveys, it is specific questions for the greatest amount of people that really speak to their customer experience interactions and how that can come back to us to give us the greatest information to have the best pulse on what is happening at check-in, getting to their rooms, at checkout, at housekeeping service time. What does that look like so that we can get that information back so that we are able to identify appropriate reactions to any issues that they are having so that then in turn the results become better in the future.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm going to add one more thing, and then I think we're going to be at time, which is Lindsay has done a ton of work and a lot of homework in terms of figuring out what questions that are important for their business. If you're at the beginning of this journey, though, and you're like, I don't know what I should be asking, I'm not sure what those key customer touch points are, you have a lot of resources available to you that you may not even be aware of. And we've been talking about them this entire time, which is look at your reviews. Where are the most important touch points or interfaces or what have you as it relates to the customer experience? Because they're going to be very front and center there, both in positive reviews as well as negative reviews, like Lindsay said at the beginning. So whatever your business is, just take a look and figure out what those are, and then you can start building a survey surrounding that, of course.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adam. I really appreciate that answer. That was amazing. It looks like you said, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I would love to keep this conversation going, but I hope you all learned a lot. I know I did. I want to thank our sponsor again, Reputation. I want to thank all of you for attending, and thank you to each of you, Aaron, Adam, and Lindsay, for sharing your time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, again, and have a great rest of your week.